The first time my dad took me out to the junkyard, I thought we were dumping trash or picking through metal for a school project. I was 12. He tossed a ragged hoodie at me and told me to change. No logos, no laces, he said. You gotta blend in. I didn't ask questions. When Dad gave you a look, you just did what he said. He drove us down to this fenced-off lot behind an old scrapyard near Bakersfield. The place smelled like burnt rubber and motor oil. 3 guys were waiting inside, all wearing camo vests. One had a German Shepherd on a leash. Another kept spinning a paintball gun in his hands like it was a toy. Dad clapped me on the shoulder like we were buddies. All right, he said, you're gonna learn something useful today. Then he pointed to the far fence, maybe 100 yards out. You've got 10 minutes to get across that yard without getting caught. If you make it, they pay me. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I thought he was joking at first. I laughed. He didn't. He handed me a stopwatch and nodded to the men. Start when I say go. My heart dropped into my stomach. What if they catch me? I asked. They won't, he said. Unless you screw up. Then he yelled, go. I ran. My sneakers hit gravel, then a pile of shredded tires. The shepherd barked and lunged. The guy holding him let the leash go. I swear I heard the click of the paintball gun before I felt the sting across my lower back. I dove behind a wrecked van, scraped my elbow on broken glass. The shepherd's paws skidded nearby. I crawled under a rusted sedan and held my breath. Paintballs splattered the metal above me. One of the men shouted, she's behind the Ford. I didn't wait. I rolled out the other side, sprinted past a stack of old fridges, and climbed over a dented dumpster. My lungs burned. I twisted my ankle when I landed wrong, but I kept going. One guy was chasing me on foot now, yelling something I didn't catch. I spotted a narrow gap under the fence, barely wide enough. I dropped and wriggled through on my stomach. Paintballs hit the dirt behind me. My hands hit grass. The stopwatch beeped. Dad walked over, slow like he had all day. I was still on the ground, gasping, my hoodie soaked with sweat and paint. He squatted down beside me. Not bad, he said. But next time, sell the panic more. Scream. Fall a little. These guys paid to feel the rush. Then he stood up and turned to the men. Same time next month? I didn't say a word. I just pulled gravel out of my palm and tried not to cry. The next time was an abandoned meat packing plant. No dogs this round, just 3 guys in ski masks and headlamps. Dad said, concrete floors, tight turns. Good place to practice corners. I had duct tape wrapped around my sneakers to muffle the sound. He even showed me how to walk on the outer edge of my feet to avoid creaks. That time, I made it through in under 12 minutes. The guy guarding the fire exit didn't even see me coming. I slipped by while he was checking his GPS. After that, it became routine. Every month, a new location. Sometimes old warehouses, sometimes construction sites still lit with floodlights. One time, it was a half-demolished mall that had vines growing through the escalators. Each run had different rules. One month, they had paintballs again. Another, it was beanbags from a modified shotgun. One guy tried to tase me. I still have the scar on my hip where I hit a chain link fence trying to get away. Dad started reading military training manuals, had me do push-ups before we left, said it activated survival adrenaline. He made flashcards with urban escape tips, find the light source, check for cameras, count exits in every room. First, I did it because I didn't know better. Then I did it because it was safer than refusing. If I won, he got paid and I got a bottle of water and a candy bar. If I lost, he'd scream the whole way home. One time he backhanded me across the face in the car and said I'd embarrassed him in front of professionals. I tried to tell a teacher once. I was 13. Told her my dad made me run drills in dangerous places with grown men chasing me. She looked horrified. Brought him in the next day. He sat there with tears in his eyes, voice cracking like he was on stage. Said I had PTSD. Claimed we'd been held at gunpoint in a gas station robbery when I was 9. And I was acting out trauma with made-up stories. He had newspaper clippings in a folder, real ones, from a robbery that happened 2 towns over. I had no memory of it because I'd never been there. But the counselor bought it. She called me dissociative, told me it was okay to create fantasy narratives for safety. So I stopped talking, but I didn't stop planning. By run number 6, I was playing their game better than they were. I'd map out the entire area during setup, look for maintenance doors, broken locks, loose vents. I carried chalk in my pocket to mark safe turns, and a hairpin to jimmy locks. I got good, real good. Once, I triggered an alarm in a different building, just to draw the hunters away from me. Another time, I crawled into a sewer grate, waited 20 minutes until they passed, then climbed out and walked right behind them to the exit point. Dad called it performance art, told me I was a natural, said I could have been a Green Beret if I'd been born a boy. One night, we were at a shipping yard in Long Beach. I was hiding under a rail car, heart pounding so loud it echoed in my ears. I watched a man with night vision goggles walk straight past me, muttering to himself. He sounded disappointed. That's when it hit me, they didn't want to win. They wanted the thrill, the hunt. I wasn't the player. I was the prize. Dad didn't care about the danger. He cared about repeat customers, about the 5-star reviews, about the money, and he never asked how my ankle was when I limped. Never cared when I came back with bruises shaped like boot treads. Only thing he said that night was, "You beat your last time by 3 minutes. Nice work, they'll be back next month." I nodded, but I wasn't doing it for him anymore. I was doing it to survive. It happened during a run at this half-collapsed hotel near Victorville. One of the guys cornered me in the stairwell. He thought I was trapped, grinned like it was already over. But I had a foot of chain wrapped in black cloth hidden up my sleeve. I cracked him across the face before he even raised his hand. The chain broke his nose with a wet crunch. Blood sprayed the wall. He screamed and dropped his gear. I didn't stop to watch. I jumped the railing and took off. That night Dad was hyped. "That's what I'm talking about," he said, pacing the kitchen like it was game footage review. "You're next level now. Pro tier. Real adrenaline for these guys. I can charge triple." He wasn't joking. A few days later, I snooped on his laptop while he was in the garage, found his ad on a private forum, high-risk prey simulations. There was a profile photo of me blurred out with stats like I was some kind of athlete. Age, height, combat readiness, even a fake backstory about how I was trained by ex-military for elite urban pursuit games. He called me elite tier prey. My stomach turned. When he came back inside, I was waiting in the living room, arms crossed, voice steady. "I'm done. You ever try to set up another run, I go to the cops." "I'm serious." He didn't get mad. He smiled. Then he walked to his room and came back with a manila envelope. "Thought you might say something stupid," he said, tossing it on the coffee table. Inside were printed photos. Me shirtless in a changing room, climbing out of wet clothes after a run. The angles were off, the lighting too perfect. Then I realized he'd staged them. Some were edited to look like something worse. "You think you scare me?" I said, voice shaking. He didn't blink. "You go to the cops, I do a week for reckless endangerment if that. Maybe unlawful training of a minor. You get a social worker, a psych eval, and a nice shiny label that follows you forever. You think the system helps girls like you." He leaned in. "You're not even legal. You have no power." I didn't say a word, just stared at the photos. No one would believe me. Not without proof. So I changed tactics, started keeping things quiet, careful. I pretended to go along with it, said I needed more time to train, needed better shoes, gloves, gear. He ate it up. I started picking up broken cameras from the locations, dug through the trash for receipts he left behind, printed out old maps from the properties we used. Some still had access codes written in marker. One night, he left the garage door cracked. I snuck in and found his backup drives, copied everything, payment logs, client emails, gear inventory. Some of the messages were disgusting. One guy asked if the girl was old enough to bleed. Dad wrote back, "She can outrun your sick ass." That's the point. I saved that one twice. He didn't notice anything missing. Didn't notice the flash drive hidden inside my deodorant cap, or the second one taped under the sink. I didn't know exactly what I was gonna do with it yet, but I knew this. I wasn't gonna let him win. Not in court, not in life, not in my head. The next run? That one was gonna be different. Run 12 started in a loading yard behind a textile mill. The air smelled like burned plastic and rat piss. I was stretching near a row of busted pallets when I saw her. This tiny girl in a purple windbreaker, maybe 10 years old, shoes 2 sizes too big, standing stiff like she was about to throw up. Dad strolled up with his usual smug grin. "New twist this time," he said. "Meet Hallie." Her guardian showed up behind her. Big dude in a leather jacket with bad teeth and no neck. He shook hands with my dad like they were old war buddies. Neither of them looked at Hallie. The girl never looked at me either. Just stared at the ground, arms tucked to her chest. That's when I knew. She hadn't volunteered. She hadn't trained. She didn't know what the hell was going on. Dad clapped his hands. "All right, listen up. 2 girls, 5 hunters, 1 prize for first capture. Standard payout rules. You get bonus if the run lasts longer than 45. The hunters this time were dressed like they'd walked out of a SWAT catalog. Full tactical gear, helmets, radio mics, everything. They carried airsoft rifles, but I could already see the mods. heavier barrels, CO2 mags. Those weren't plastic BBs, they were steel pellets. Are you serious with this? I said low. Dad didn't even glance at me. You wanted harder runs, he muttered. I pulled Hallie aside and squatted down in front of her. Listen, you follow me exactly. Every turn, every second, no matter what. Got it. She gave the smallest nod I'd ever seen. Didn't say a word. I took her hand and squeezed it once. Don't stop running, no matter what you hear behind you. The horn blasted. We bolted. I led her down a narrow path between two loading docks, straight into the alley I'd scoped the day before. There was a gap in the fence barely big enough for her to crawl through. I shoved her through it and scrambled after her. One of the hunters fired. The pellets pinged off the metal rail just inches from her foot. She screamed. I yanked her back to her feet. Move! We ran through a maintenance corridor that reeked of piss and mold, then climbed into a hollow stack of shipping crates I'd emptied during prep. She was panting, almost wheezing, but she kept up. My brain was working nonstop, mapping out every escape I'd logged, every trap I'd planted. This wasn't a test run anymore. This was a live op, and I wasn't just trying to win. I was trying to take the whole system down from the inside. I led Hallie into a side lot with half-collapsed scaffolding and pointed to a crawl space under the wall. Go, I said. Fast. I'll cover. As she crawled, I looked back and saw two shadows moving fast, close enough to hear one of them breathing heavy. I gripped the crowbar I'd hidden in the dirt behind a generator. It wasn't just about surviving now. It was about sending a message. The second we cleared the scaffolding, I yanked Hallie toward a vent hatch I'd loosened 2 days earlier. She hesitated, probably didn't believe a kid could crawl through it. I shoved it open, kicked out the screen, and climbed in first. Come on, I hissed. She followed, sniffling, face streaked with dirt and sweat. The maintenance tunnels under the shipyard were pitch black. I knew every inch. I'd mapped it, booby-trapped it, prepped it like I was going to war. 10 yards in, I heard it, boots behind us. Fast. Keep left, I whispered, grabbing her wrist. Right then, a wet slap echoed behind us, followed by a sharp snap and a scream that didn't sound fake. The first hunter had slipped on the grease I poured near the drop shaft. His arm cracked on the edge of the stairwell. His airsoft rifle bounced once, then clattered down 2 levels. Hallie froze, eyes wide. Nope, don't stop now. I dragged her by the collar and ducked behind a forklift parked at the junction. 2 more shadows passed in the tunnel behind us, flashlights sweeping fast. They were hunting for real now. I felt it. The cocky sportsman vibe was gone. We dropped low and crawled under a row of stacked shipping containers. My arms burned. My knees were raw. Hallie started breathing loud and panicky again. Slow it down, I said. Short breaths. Stay with me. I led her into the tool shack I'd found during prep. It had a broken lock, so I rigged a sliding bolt inside with duct tape and a washer. Once the door was shut, I clicked on a flashlight and opened the locker I'd hidden supplies in behind a pile of crates. 2 granola bars, a half-empty bottle of Gatorade, gauze, and 4 makeshift blades I'd shaped from snap tool handles and sharpened metal files. I tossed her a snack first. Eat. You'll puke later, but eat now. She tore the wrapper with shaking hands. I handed her one of the blades. It wasn't much, just a jagged shard wrapped in cloth. Hold it like this. I showed her. Grip tight. Don't swing unless you have to. If they grab you, aim for their eyes or neck, not their stomach. That won't stop them. She started crying again, quiet and ugly like she was trying not to. I crouched in front of her. You want out of this? I asked. Then you fight like it's the last night of your life. 'Cause it might be. She nodded. Her lip was trembling, but she didn't look away. We stayed in the shack until the radios crackled past again. Then I took the pipe I'd hidden under the shelves and smashed the nearest security camera. No footage. No evidence we were ever here. Just shadows. We moved fast after that, zigzagged through loading docks, ducked into breaker rooms and behind power boxes. I knew every place where the lighting sucked, every blind spot. I heard one of the hunters say over comms, still 2 untagged, 1 injured. Their voices didn't sound confident anymore. I made sure of that. We slipped into the drainage trench near the back of the shipyard, boots sloshing through cold runoff. That's where I had another trap. Thin fishing line stretched between 2 support beams at ankle height. The last guy who chased me here during prep had tripped on it and busted his nose. This time, no one fell for it, but I heard someone mutter, "She's setting traps now?" Damn right I was. Hallie tugged my sleeve. Are we gonna die? No, I said. They are. I led Hallie to the back fence and yanked open the busted junction box I'd stashed behind a stack of crates. Inside, wires were already labeled. I'd spent an hour doing that 2 days earlier with Dad thinking I was on recon. "Hold this," I told Hallie, handing her the flashlight while I jammed the flathead into the breaker panel and snapped the main. Sparks jumped, then silence. Half the yard behind us went dark. Seconds later, I heard shouting over the comms. "What the hell? Did the lights cut?" And then Dad's voice, tight, pissed off, trying to keep control. "I'm not refunding a damn dime. They knew the risks." Hallie gave me this scared look like we just pushed a button we couldn't unpress. "We're good," I told her. "Just wait." The floodlights went dark across the containers. The only ones left were emergency backlights. Dim, flickery, barely useful. I grabbed her hand again and made a beeline for the rusted tower near the far end. Dad always kept backup batteries and an inverter system in there in case clients complained about immersion loss. We climbed the metal stairs fast, boots clanging. Hallie slipped once but didn't fall. At the top, I kicked the door open and yanked the tarp off the inverter setup. "Start pulling wires," I said. "Anything not bolted down, rip it out." She hesitated, then dove in. Kid had guts. I twisted the terminals, smashed the inverter screen with a crowbar, and kicked over one of the battery stacks. Acid hissed on the concrete. Somewhere outside, a man yelled, "What the hell's going on?" We took off before the smoke got too thick. Near the south alley, I heard the whistle of someone hitting the tripwire I'd left strung across 2 barrels. Clank, thunk, then a scream. Full guttural. Paint can. Nails. Right to the face. I froze just long enough to hear him slam into the gravel. Hallie was shaking again, eyes wide. "Don't look," I said. "Just run." We ducked into a crawl space under the conveyor ramp while more boots thundered past. Radios cracked like fireworks. 2 traps now. This kid's trying to kill somebody. Then came Dad again, his voice sharp in my earpiece. I didn't even remember turning it on. "Speed it up. I want them down before dawn. Bonus for whoever finishes this clean." Hallie looked at me like she was waiting for me to panic, but I didn't flinch. "You hear that?" I whispered. "He's scared. They're all scared now." We moved toward the main fuel lot. I kept to shadows, crawling under busted cranes, avoiding open spaces. My pulse was steady. Every move had a purpose. We passed one of the hunters near the forklift line. He was on edge, back to the wall, scanning too fast. His finger twitched near the trigger. They weren't hunting anymore. They were waiting to be attacked. I could feel it in the way they moved. I whispered to Hallie, "They're not built for chaos. They're built for control." We cut across a line of parked loaders and ducked into a drainage duct. I stopped us just long enough to check my next trap. Still armed, still wired. I smiled to myself. "Hallie," I said, "we're not gonna run this out. We're gonna finish it." She nodded, tears on her cheeks but jaw locked like stone. The girl had fire. We ducked into the drainage tunnel just as the sky cracked open. Wind howled down the pipe, sharp as razors, and cold drizzle followed fast. Within minutes, my hoodie was soaked. Hallie's teeth were chattering so hard I could hear it over the storm. "Up," I said. "Jumping jacks. Now." She looked at me like I was crazy. I clapped my hands once loud. "Do it or freeze." We jumped together, feet slapping wet concrete, arms pumping hard. My thighs burned, lungs stung, but it kept the blood moving. Once I saw color come back to her face, I led her out the far end of the tunnel and straight toward a red shipping container I'd prepped earlier. It looked no different from the rest, but I'd popped the lock last night and stashed gear behind a wall of tarps. Inside, the air smelled like rust and wet plastic. I yanked a duffel from the corner, unzipped it, and handed her a dry sweatshirt and socks. "Change fast," I said. "You too soaked to move quiet." She stripped down without a word. I turned my back and changed 2 dry thermal underlayers, fresh gloves. Every second we wasted was a second closer to sunrise. From the bottom of the bag, I pulled out a cheap burner phone. Battery was charged. I tapped it and handed it to her. "Text 911 your location. Just send the pin and drop it. Don't say a word." Her fingers were shaking, but she did it. I watched the screen flicker. GPS sent. Then we heard it, crunching gravel. Boots outside. We slid behind the wall of crates and peeked through the slits I'd carved into the steel. One hunter pacing, limping. The grease guy. He held his rifle low, scanning slowly, mouth moving like he was talking to himself. I leaned close to Hallie and whispered, "Stay down. Cover your ears if it gets loud." She nodded without blinking. I tossed a loose bolt toward the far end of the container. Clanked just once. He turned his head, walked toward the sound. I slipped out the side, silent, gripping the crowbar with both hands. My body moved on instinct now, breath low, feet soft. He stepped around the corner. I swung hard. The metal hit his temple with a sick crack. He dropped like a bag of cement, didn't even twitch. I grabbed his rifle, unloaded it, then kicked it under the container. When I stepped back inside, Hallie was crouched in the corner. Her hands were shaking. She looked up at me, then leaned over and puked into the corner. I didn't say anything, just gave her a bottle of water. She wiped her mouth with her sleeve and took a sip. "Is he dead?" she asked. "Don't know. Doesn't matter." She didn't ask again. Outside, the wind picked up. The drizzle turned to real rain. My joints ached, but I wasn't done. I looked at Hallie, her soaked hair matted to her face, cheeks pale but eyes steady. "3 down," I said. "2 left." She nodded, and neither of us ran. We barely made it to the crane yard before the last 2 caught up. I heard their boots pounding behind us, heavy, fast, pissed. I yanked Hallie behind a stack of pallets, just as a pellet zipped past my ear and punched into the wood. "Go," I hissed. Left path. We bolted through the maze of crates and rusted scaffolding. My feet pounded soaked concrete. Hallie was right behind me until I heard her cry out. I spun. She was on the ground, clutching her leg. Blood soaked through her sock. She tripped over a busted board and gashed it open on a jagged nail. I didn't think, just scooped her up and ran. Her arms clung tight to my neck. She was sobbing but quiet. We ducked behind a cement block wall near the loading chute. I set her down gently and yanked a rag from my belt to tie around her leg. "Stay low. You're good. You're okay." Above us, I heard metal creak. One of the hunters had climbed onto the catwalk above the gravel chute. I saw his shadow move along the steel frame, slow and careful. He had a clean shot. I scanned the side panel. The old chute had a manual release, probably rusted, maybe jammed, but it was all I had. I jumped up, grabbed the lever, and yanked with everything I had. It shrieked, groaned, then snapped free. The chute dumped a ton of loose gravel and rusted scrap metal straight onto the catwalk. The guy screamed as he slipped. His rifle flew out of his hands. Then he hit the ground like a dropped toolbox. Hard. The other one was already charging in. I saw him lunge toward Hallie, arm raised, face twisted with rage. I pulled the blade from my belt and drove it into his arm just below the shoulder. He roared and stumbled back, gripping the wound. Hallie scrambled behind me. I stepped in front of her, holding the blade like I'd used it 1,000 times. He looked at me, bleeding and furious, but he didn't come again. Then I heard the voice I'd been waiting for. "You ruined the run, Dad." He stormed in from the lot, fists clenched, face red. He looked around at the chaos. 2 hunters down, 1 bleeding, 1 gone, lights still out, cameras shattered. "You ruined everything," he shouted again. I pulled the flash drive from my pocket and held it up between 2 fingers. "Smile," I said. "You're on camera." He froze. His eyes locked on the drive like it burned. "You think that's gonna save you?" he sneered. "No one's gonna believe this. You're just a freak who doesn't know when to shut up." I stepped closer. "It's got everything. Emails, pay logs, footage from the backup system in the tower before I smashed it. Cops are already on the way. You lose." Right then, red and blue lights lit up the yard like the 4th of July. Sirens cut through the rain. Dad didn't run. He didn't move. Just stood there, breathing hard like a dog in heat. One of the hunters limped toward the gate, hands raised. The other was still groaning on the ground. Hallie stayed behind the cement block, peeking out. I stepped in front of her one last time. "You're not touching her again. Ever." Behind me, I heard car doors slam and boots hitting gravel. The second they cuffed my dad, I dropped the flash drive into a cop's hand. "You're gonna want to watch that." They split us up at the scene. Hallie got wrapped in a space blanket and loaded into an ambulance. I rode in the back of a cruiser, rain still dripping from my hair, crowbar still on the ground where I'd dropped it. No one asked questions for the first hour. They let me sit in a warm hallway sipping something hot, wrapped in somebody's old hoodie. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, even when I wasn't cold anymore. Then the detectives showed up. Not rookies, real ones. Quiet voices. Not smiling. I gave them everything. Flash drives, maps, paper receipts from old job sites. The burner phone with the 911 ping still open. I told them names, dates, locations, which buildings still had traps, which guys used dogs, which ones brought extra gear just to increase realism. They didn't interrupt. They just took notes. Dad tried to spin his way out like always, said we were runaways, that I was a liar, said we squatted in abandoned buildings and faked the footage to make him look bad. But the video didn't lie. It had him shaking hands, taking cash, giving rules. One clip showed him laughing while I got slammed into a wall by a grown man twice my size. Then came the payment logs, his voice on the comms, fake contracts signed by aliases. Child services stepped in before sunrise. Hallie went first. They wrapped her in fresh clothes and drove her off with a counselor. I made sure they gave me the number of her placement. Don't split us up completely, I told them. She's all I've got. They didn't promise, but they didn't argue either. My own placement came a few hours later. Clean house, twin bed, kitchen that smelled like toast and carpet cleaner. First hot meal I'd had in a week, chicken and rice. I didn't say thank you. I just ate until I thought I'd puke. Then I showered, crawled under a blanket, and passed out for 14 hours. No one screamed. No boot stomped down the hallway. It was the first time I slept through the night in years. Dad's bail was denied before he even saw a judge. The DA called him a flight risk and an active threat to minors. 3 of the hunters flipped almost immediately. One brought in his own stash of footage like it was a plea deal starter pack. Another spilled every detail of how they booked slots online and got discounts for group hunts. The prosecutor started using words like trafficking, conspiracy, and abuse for profit. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just nodded. It was about damn time. 6 months later, I passed my GED practice test on the first try. The counselor clapped like it was some huge miracle. I didn't say anything, just folded the paper and stuck it in my bag. Didn't want to jinx it. My therapist says I'm making progress. She uses words like regulation and reframing. I don't bother correcting her when she gets my tone wrong. She means well. I still wake up sweating some nights, usually around 3. Same dream, boots behind me, lights too bright, breath stuck in my throat. But I breathe through it now. Drink some water. Go back to sleep. Not every night, though. That's new. Hallie's living 2 towns over. Her new foster mom's a nurse, super strict but kind. She's learning guitar, sends me short videos on a shared tablet we trade back and forth on weekends. Her laugh sounds like it belongs to a real kid now. Light, dumb, free. She wants to write songs. Said one of them's gonna be about the first night we met. I told her that's a terrible idea. She said, yeah, but it'll be loud. Trial's still coming, but I don't have to testify again. The DA said the evidence speaks louder than I ever could. I believe her. My foster mom cleared out a corner of the garage and told me I could use it for projects. I built a shelf the first week. Now I've got birdhouses, tool racks, even some booby traps just for fun, nothing sharp. I like the feel of making something that doesn't have to protect me. I run every morning before breakfast. Real running, not survival, not evasion, just air in my lungs, sweat on my skin, and no one chasing me. Some mornings I stop and sit in the grass, watch the road, think about nothing, just quiet. I used to believe the story wouldn't matter unless I told it out loud, made it real for someone else. Now I'm not sure. Maybe someday I'll tell the full thing. Maybe I won't, but I lived it. I know what happened, and for the first time in a long time, that's enough. Would you have fought back like she did, or tried to escape sooner? Drop your answer in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more true story breakdowns.